What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time stopping in, thank you for joining me. In today's video, we've got a two-parter for you. We've already recorded the first part a few days ago. That was installing the new Harley Davidson flat-out crash bar or tip-over protection. And today, we have a box from Amazon here that we're going to go ahead and incorporate onto the flat-out bar. Let's check it out. So we've got our box here from Amazon. It is not an Amazon like China product. It is a name brand product. As you can already see from the title, we are installing some Baja Designs pod lights on this flat out bar. I didn't really have any intention of doing this. I was getting my hair cut yesterday and I was sitting there waiting a couple minutes and I'm like, get online. Next thing you know, I got these ordered up and figured let's install these and see what we think. So we're gonna go ahead, set this box on the workbench, open it up, see what's inside, figure out how the heck we're gonna install these on the bar. All right, so getting inside here, we've got sticker, scan code, how to use whatever installation, and we have our pod lights. To give you guys a reference of how big these are, because I know some of you may be thinking, oh, that's big, bulky, ugly. Well, here you go, Apple Watch, 45 millimeter, I think. Yeah, it's small. So they're nice and small, low profile, one wire here. We're gonna figure out how to do this super clean as we can anyway. And might piss some people off because I'm gonna drill a few holes in the flat out bar, but I absolutely, well, let's get into it. So we get this out of the way here. Go on, get in there. Yeah, all right. And we have two pod lights. These are like 250 bucks on Amazon, 230 or something like that. We have the two fog lights here, the yellow lens, which you can change out for a clear one. You don't have to buy a whole new light. That's nice. Powder coat looks really good quality on here. I mean, it's a name brand, so it better be. And it comes with a harness. It's got a relay and everything. Apparently these take a lot of power. I originally thought about just wiring these into my high beams, so that way when I flip the high beams on, these come on. But I figured I may want these for low beams as well. And with these drawing quite a bit of power, I am gonna go ahead and actually install the harness and switch, but I do wanna find a really good spot to hide the switch on the bike. So we're gonna do that as well. So we've got some instructions here, some basic stuff. Let's go ahead and dig right in. So as I said, I have already installed the crash bar because I had no intention of doing this. So may take it back off to do this, but I really prefer to just leave it on. We'll see. So the harness here comes with a fuse. Oh wow, that's a 30 amp fuse. Dang, that's yeah, these things are gonna pull some power. Okay, yes, we've got a relay here, standard battery connections, and then you've got your harnesses to plug into the fog lights. Now then you've got a switch buried in here as well. There's your switch. So I'm actually going to end up cutting these leads off of the harness here and soldering them directly to the wires here. That way we get rid of these big bulky connectors, because I'm going to try to run this in the flat out bar. So I hate seeing these zip tied to the outside of the flat out bar, these running down the side, and then you've got the connector there, and it's, I mean, imagine, you know, your lights here, you got the wires running here, and you know, you got the connector like here, and it's all just zip tied on. It's like, man, it's a $250 crash bar. Drill some holes in it, run the wires through it, have it look super clean, have them come up in here, up, yeah. So anyways, that's what we're gonna do. Alrighty, so I've got the crash bar back off the bike. It had to come off for me to do this nice and clean, and I refuse to do it any other way. So I've got it marked on the bottom of the bar when the bar is on the bike, which is nice, honestly, that it was on the bike so that I could figure that out. So now I know exactly where bottom is for mounting the lights to the bottom of it. And then where I want to drill for the wires to the harness to come out, I'm gonna go ahead and drill right here, which is in the inside of the frame, and it is on the opposite side as the radiator coolant line, so that it's a little bit further away from heat. And I traced out the wiring on the bike. I could either go up underneath the tank, then I have to pull the tank and all that, or I can run this along one of the biggest looms on the bike, which runs underneath the bike. And so I'm just gonna do it that way. It's gonna come through here and it's gonna go down underneath. I'll show you guys what that looks like. But for now, let's drill some holes. All right, so the size of the wiring loom going to the light pods is going to just be a hot and a cold, because we're gonna cut these connectors off. So it's just gonna be as small as we can make the hole for these two separate wiring pieces to go left and right in the bar. So we've got our punch here. Go ahead and just pop this out. The nice thing is, with how long this harness is, we're going to be able to run this through and out the holes where the lights are actually going to mount in, or the wiring I should say, and solder them outside and then slip it back in, and it'll be really clean. You guys will see, it'll be good. All right, so this hole is plenty big for both wires to split off left and right to the pods. So now we can go ahead and worry about mounting the pods to the bar, and then we'll go ahead and drill the holes for the wires to go up and in, and so on and so forth. So I will end up putting a dab of paint on here, and then a grommet around the harness and everything, and the same on the ends, so that it's nice and clean and doesn't rust. The supplied hardware for this bracket, I believe, is a 3/16. I went and picked up some of my own because I do intend to use some nut certs inside of the bar. You could also tap and thread it that way, but there's really not much to go off of, so I wouldn't recommend it. So yeah, it's a 3/16. The ones that I got are a stainless button head Allen instead of just a regular hex head. It's gonna be much cleaner that way. So great, we only need to drill a small hole for the 3/16. It's gonna be a little bit bigger because, like I said, we are using some nut certs. They look like this, and basically what you do is you drill the hole for this size, slip it in, and then you use a tool that crimps this in like a rivet would be. I've heard these called riv nuts or nut certs. Anyways, it goes in and it finds itself a home in there, and then when you bolt to that, you're good to go. So drill a hole this size. No going back now. Boom. Good play there. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is use the supplied bolt that they gave me, and then also 2 nuts that I picked up at the hardware store, and use that as a makeshift nut cert puller. So basically our intention now that the nut cert is in is to pull the inside out, and it'll fold it in. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, but basically you end up with it sunk in there, set in there, never coming out, and good to bolt it up. And it's a good, reliable way of doing that. So essentially our goal is to hold this bottom nut here while we force the bolt tighter and tighter in the riv nut, which is pulling it up and towards, mushrooming it in place. And you'll know when it's there, when it stops wobbling around or moving on you. All right, so as you can see, the nut cert is inside and collapsed and is not going to go anywhere. So now we can go ahead and do the bracket. All right, so I've got the light mocked up where I want it to angle. I tried it out on the bike to make sure it's right. So now I'm going to go ahead and drill the hole back here for the wire to go up and in, and then it'll go over this way, because I do not want to run zip ties and run it along the bar like this. I think that looks ugly. I'd rather drill a hole. First thing we need to do is go ahead and snip this harness. All right, so in the interest of making this an extremely clean install, I'm going to take a chance here. What I have currently is the light sits and the bracket sits like this, and there's this big gap, and that looks really, really ugly to me. So what I want to do is I want to trim these ears off here and drill a new set of holes. So instead of this being here, it would sit down lower, probably about here. And I'm hoping that that looks much cleaner, and the button head Allen that bolts this up into the bar still fits. So we'll see, but I think that's gonna look the cleanest, so that's what I'm gonna attempt to do. All right, you guys, so I have one side done. I went ahead and just really wanted to test my theory out and kind of get it figured out before I showed you guys and recorded a bunch. So I was able to trim the bracket up on both sides. Just literally cut off the tabs where they were at, where the previous holes were drilled a new set of holes, and it just fits. I did have to trim up the Allen a little bit, the one that goes into the crash bar, but it looks super, super clean. You've got the hole drilled where the wires run in. You know, when this is on the bike, you can't even see that bracket. Once that's powdered black, that's gonna look really, really good and clean. I like that the fog light is really just floating there. There's no zip ties, there's no wires. It really looks clean compared to any other options out there, including like the big bulky clamp-on ones. And the clamp-on ones are a pain too, because you have to have a long enough flat spot. You couldn't run it here because it would be crooked here and then not bolt into the side there. So really, really happy with how this turned out. Gonna go ahead and do the other side and show you guys the end results. Well, we had our workspace stolen, sir. Oh, yeah. Anyways, we have the crash bar all done with the lighting. Turned out extremely clean. I still need to obviously run the wiring through the crash bar out this hole and into the bike. So that's going to be our next step, but just wanted to show you guys where we're at. Now we are running these upside down, so you do have to flip the logo there, the Baja Designs, the whole front face, but it's just those 4 bolts already done on this side. And so I'll go ahead and flip those right now for you and continue on. All right, so as I was saying, super easy to flip this around. You're gonna use a T10, take this plate, flip, and this would be the same for replacing this yellow lens with the clear one. You would just remove those to do that. All right, you guys, we have got the flat out bar back on with the fog lights. It looks spectacular. I'm gonna show you guys what that looks like. Then we're gonna get right into pulling the seat off and figuring out how to expose the battery and run the harness through down the bike and then up, and then we'll solder it to the lights. Then I don't know if I'll get to the switch today or tomorrow, but either way, we're on our way. All right, so we've got the tray here that sits above the battery. I believe the ACM and stuff is in here too. So I know these clips we end up having to pop, get them out of the way to remove all of this. So let's get started. So here's one of our heated gear leads. Get that out of the way. Pull the orange tab, lift it up here, and slide it off and out. And we'll remove the plugs. This is our BCM. That's what your BCM looks like. So we're running the wiring harness from up here down versus from down there up, because it's going to be easier with the smaller plugs, because as you remember, I cut the ends off, so it's gonna be much easier to route that stuff through doing it that way. And what we're gonna do to mitigate any risk with an electrical problem is we are going to remove that fuse that comes in that harness. We're going to remove that, and that will not allow any power to go from the battery, which will be disconnected from the bike, anywhere it shouldn't, until we are all done. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll drop that fuse in and plug it back in. Actually, we have to remove the positive and the negative because we're installing that harness. All right. So I'll bring you guys in closer here and show you exactly what we're looking at. So we've got the BCM connectors removed, and then we just got this slid over out of the way. And here we have our battery, and here's your negative terminal and your positive terminal. So we're gonna go ahead and put the harness in those two, and then it'll live in here. There's plenty of room down in here, and then we'll run the wiring down onto the bike, over, up, and Bob's your uncle. So check back in a second. All right, so here's our harness. Here's our 30 amp fuse. 30 amp fuse is removed. So now there will be no power going through this hot wire when it's all connected. So we're gonna go ahead and plug these in, stuff this stuff in, zip tie it up. This is going to our switch, and these are going to go to our fog lights. All right, so currently we've got the harness run down here, behind the frame rail here, down, zip tied in here and here with the factory harness, and then running, hopefully I can get this for you guys, running here and then along the factory harness here. I was actually even able to clip it in to these factory clips. This is not the wire, this is actually an OEM wire. And then it's running down underneath. I still haven't zip tied it up in there, but it will be zip tied up to the factory harness, which is right here. And then it's going to run up with the factory harness and back along the frame rail. There's plenty of room from the exhaust in here. I may still end up heat wrapping it eventually, but yeah, so it's gonna run up this way and then right into the crash bar, and then we'll run it to here and good to go. All right, so bars mounted back on, the lights are bolted up, super sturdy, and electrical connections are soldered on both sides. So we're gonna get started figuring out how to remove the tank. I've got a T40 here, and we'll start with that for these two bolts here. All right, we've got a rubber cap on the side of the tank. It looks like another T40. All right, so we've got all four bolts here, 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 here on the tank removed. Okay, so now that we have our tank loose on those four bolts, we can go ahead and remove the quick disconnect for the fuel line. The fuel line runs across this way, but all you have to do is push up here and it comes off, and it's got an automatic check, so it turns it off. So lift up and shimmy down, and we're out. Fuel is stopped, good to go. So now the next thing is this wire here, which will probably be our fuel level sensor, and it just runs to this plug right here. So we'll disconnect that, and then it should just be the vent lines, and the tank will be ready to come off. All right, so I ended up pulling the cover. It's just an Allen here and a Torx here. Go ahead and remove this vent line and this vent line from the cap here. So we are good, should be. Go ahead and just lift the tank right off. Sure are. Set it off to the side somewhere safe, and we are pretty dug in now. So we'll go ahead and pull the plastic cover here, run the wire for the switch right on up the neck there and into the clamshell, and clean this all up. We'll be good to go. All right, so we've got the plastic cover pulled off. And if you ever wanted to be nervous about having electrical issues on your bike, there you go. Anyways, should be fine, right? So we're gonna go ahead and run this harness wire up and through here, and then connect it to the switch and mount the switch in there. So let's carry on. All right, you guys, we have the wiring harness here that runs up to the switch. We've got it coming along this way with plenty of lead so that turning the bars, you don't have any pinches or short. Here we have a zip tie to the factory harness here that I've already cleaned up from when I did my T-bar install. Runs down along the factory harness. It's zip tied right there. And then comes through here. There's a zip tie there. Goes along the factory harness here. And then another zip tie right here. And then it runs through the factory wiring loom area here and dumps down in here. This extra lead we could cut and solder, but honestly, if I just cleanly bundle it up, zip tie it, tuck it in, there's plenty of room for it there. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing. For the switch, I was going to just zip tie it to the wiring here, but that'd be kind of funky. I'm sure I'd be riding and sometimes be pointed a weird direction. I wanted to do something a little bit cleaner, but I did not want to do a bunch of drilling and a bunch of work in the fairing and just mess that all up. I figured this clamshell would be pretty cheap to replace in the future if for some reason I decide to change my mind. So I went ahead and mounted the switch in here. So it's nice, discreet, one clean hole drilled out. It's clipped in there nice and tight. It's nice and centered and straight. We take this 30 amp, slap it on in, and we should be live. Let's take a look. Pretty dang cool. All right, you guys, we've got the wiring all done and everything ready to button back up. Set you guys up on the stand here and do a little quick time lapse of reinstalling everything. All right, you guys, we have the bike back together here and all of the zip ties run with the wiring. Got everything tucked really good and far away from exhaust, oil cooler, oil filter housing, block, etc. So we shouldn't have any issues there, but I will keep an eye on that and report back if I do. We will go ahead and use a little bit of black RTV probably to line that so that's sealed, unless I decide to do a grommet, but we'll see. Now they've got the lights all wired up, mounted up, tight, good to go. We got to see how these things perform in the dark. Let's hop on the bike and find out. We are out here on the back roads with no street lights, anything like that. Not much light pollution. We're out here in farmland. So, sorry, road's a little bit bumpy. But anyways, this is our stock low beam. That's our stock high beam. We'll go ahead and hit those fog lights here. And that's fog lights plus low beam. And that's fog lights plus high beam. That right there, you guys, that's like daylight. That instills a lot of confidence in trusting that other people have a better chance of seeing me. And I feel good about riding these back roads at night with a little bit more lighting. I mean, that's a large difference there. When you go low beam, I mean, it really floods in front of me, the sides. It's just solid. So, I mean, I think that the video speaks for itself. I hope this does it justice.
but you will not regret spending a little bit of time and money doing this install if you're looking for better lighting for your night riding.
All right, you guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I highly recommend these Baja Designs S1 lights if you're interested. Whether you get them in the yellow lens or the clear, you're not gonna be disappointed. They're extremely bright. They're gonna help other drivers see you better in a low light condition, in fog, rain, etc. I think it's an absolute awesome addition to these bikes. There are a lot of different ways you can go about installing it. This is just how I did it. But if you have ideas of how you could do it differently and you have questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down below. I'll get back to you guys. Please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing because we always have more awesome parts coming. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys in my next off week.